सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। मौन व्याख्या प्रकटित परब्रह्म तत्त्वं युवानं वर्षिष्ठान्ते वसदृशिगणैः आवृत ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्य इन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दरूपं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे वटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषन्नं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखच्छेददक्षं नमामि। चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोस्तु मौनं व्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्नसंशयाः निधये सर्वविद्यानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय चिज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये यस्यैव स्फुरणं सदात्मकम् असत्कल्पार्थकं भासते तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधयत्याश्रितान् यत्साक्षात्करणात् भवेन्न पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्भोनिधौ तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाचित्रघटोदरस्थितमहा प्रभाभास्वरं ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणद्वारा बहिस्पन्दते जानामि इति तमेव भान्तुमनुभात् एतत् समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपि इन्द्रियानपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमहा व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये राहुग्रस्त दिवांकरेन्दु सदृशो माया समाच्छादनात् सन्मात्रः कर्णोपसंहरणतो यो भूत्सुषुप्तः पुमान् रागस्वाप्स्वमिति प्रबोधसमये यत्प्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बाल्यादिषु अपि जाग्रदादिषु तथा सर्वास्वस्थास्वपि व्यावृत्तास्वनुवर्तमानमहम् इत्यन्तःस्फुरन्तं सदा स्वात्मानं प्रकटीकरोति भजतां यो मुद्रया भद्रया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये विश्वं पश्यति कार्यकारणतया स्वस्वामिसम्बन्धतः शिष्याचार्यतया तथैव पुत्रात्यात्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जागृति वा य एष पुरुषो मायापरिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्भांस्य नलो नीलोऽम्बर्महर्नार्थो हिमांशुः पुमान् इत्याभाति चराचरात्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकम् नान्यत् किञ्चिन विद्यते विमर्शतां यस्मात् परस्मात् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्मत्वोद्धीकृतमिदं यस्मादमुष्मिंस्तवे तेनास्य श्रवणात् तदर्थमननात् ध्यानात् च संकीर्तनात् सर्वात्महाविभूतिसहितं स्यादीश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्ध्येत्तत्पुनरष्टधा परिणतं चैश्वर्यमव्याहतम्। Is phone ringing? I hear a ring. It's not mine. It's okay. Somebody's phone was ringing. So as you know, we are doing the verse number 6 today, as we started last week. Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrisho maya samachanar sanmatra, etc. So So one of the important things to remember and to aspire for in the understanding of the Atma is that the I, the Atma, is both self-effulgent and self-existing. Okay. And the implications of these two truths, and also the fact that it is what is called unlimited in terms of its joy, which is called Bhuma. It's a separate discussion and we'll come to it sooner or later, perhaps even in some of the subsequent verses. But for now, the two aspects of the Atma that we need to really aspire to understand. It doesn't happen immediately because our mind cannot grasp what is meant by Swata Siddha. Swata Siddha means one which is self-existing. The implications are enormous, but we don't know how to appreciate it because everything seems to be a dependent entity. So everything in my whole experience, including myself as a person, is very well experienced as a dependent entity. Dependent on so many things. Dependent on being born. Dependent on being there. Dependent on all of the things that control starting with my breath, my life. I'm dependent on it. If my breath stops, then I'm gone. So I'm dependent on the breath. I'm dependent on the body. Not only with the breath, but what the breath can do to my body, how to keep it alive, that I am breathing and I'm circulating all the things, the blood is flowing, the heart is beating. Dependence. Not to speak about it, dependence from an emotional standpoint. That if people if I am not liked very well by the others, then it weighs on me, becomes a very heavy burden on me. Dependence. So the Swata Siddhatvam, I'm not clear. What do you mean by Swata Siddham? I can see the meaning of the words, meaning self-existing. Means independently existing. This is from a grammatical standpoint, I understand. Independently existing, I can understand. But what does it mean for me? It doesn't really jive. And the same thing is true for self-effulgence. Means that even from a mental vritti standpoint, my knowledge, my awareness, it is self-aware. Self-existing and self-aware. So Sat and Chit, those things have to be clear to me. They are not clear to me, and they need investigation. Investigation by Shastra that tells us here's how you need to investigate. This is the way you should think about it. So these are the two main things that we should keep in mind there. So out of those two, as we have already, I'm just revising, the first three verses were based on self-effulgence, chit bhavaha. And one of the important ways of discovering self-effulgence was to examine the experience of a dream. So as we said before, the dream it has many factors. One of the things that it has is that it's a psychological safety valve. Safety valve, which is well understood by many peoples, and then a lot of the Westerners, including Freud, spent a lot of time analyzing the importance of dream as a safety valve, meaning that there are certain thoughts that you cannot bring yourself up to think about during the Jagrat Avastha. Either they're too painful or whatever. And so you are in a state of denial. But there is a pressure built up that you need to think about it, but you sort of suppress it and say, no, I can't think about it. So your unconscious is being suppressed by your conscious. But when you are in a dream, your conscious attempts itself is suppressed. You don't have any control over your thinking. And so the subconscious actually comes up to the surface and raises it, and you allow it to fester. And you actually suffer also. So the dream experience appears to be unreal only upon waking up, as we have seen this before, that the dream itself is just as painful to you as the Jagrata Avastha. So in the manner, by releasing some of the pent-up emotional problems, the dream is useful to you. So this is what is well understood from a medical standpoint. But having said that, in the Shastra it says it is an extremely secondary usefulness of analyzing the dream. It happens like a byproduct, not the main advantage of analyzing dream. It is given to you as a byproduct, that it acts as a safety valve. And what is the primary use of dream? The primary use of dream is to provide a very good vehicle for you to compare your thought patterns in the waking state with the thought patterns in the dream state. By that it means, by comparing the thought processes, it means that it says that even though you are a fully functional person before dreaming and after the dream is over, for a while you get into a strange land by virtue of your own mind, by your own identity, some kind of a process that we can go into in more detail. It's very, not as though we don't know what it is. It is very well known how the dreams occur. There's a great deal of research on that. But leaving aside that part, the comparison between the dream state and the waking state provides us with a way to analyze the workings of my mind and my knowledge, how the knowledge can really give me a false idea of who I am. So that all has to do with Chit Swarupa, Chit Bhava, Chit Swarupa. So the comparison between the dream and the waking state, which is provided in the first 3 verses of Dakshinamurti Stotram, is all based on Chit, which is one of the things that we should think about. And so that means that my consciousness, I as the consciousness, we should be careful in using those. When you say my consciousness, so it is not, this is an important thing to see, by the way. So when you say my consciousness, this is not a 6th case sambandha. You see, so it's interesting. Another interesting, I'll just spend a minute on this particular aspect, my consciousness and so on. So, because it just so happens that we are discussing this thing called Rahu Grasta. So Rahu is the phenomena that seems to cut away a portion of the sun, as though somebody has taken a bite out of it. So we envision it as the Rahu. Rahu and Ketu are considered to be powerful forces that can obstruct the sun and the moon to you. So this is called Rahu. So the Rahu is considered to be a kind of like a person with a body. Okay? So this is the grammar that goes into my consciousness. So I'll explain to you what the connection is. So he says, Raho Shiram. Raho Shiram means the head of Rahu. But the thing is that the Rahu itself is nothing but an elliptical condition. It's an elliptical shape fasten, it's just imagined to be an elliptical shape thing, kind of like a, when you have these things that move very fast in the air, what's that called?
Trajectory. Trajectory.
Yeah, something like
Thinking of frisbee or
Frisbee.
no, the one that falls around from
Meteor?
meteor. Yeah, it's like a meteor. It's considered to be like a meteor, elliptical shaped meteor. So the elliptical shaped meteor does not have a clear head and a body. It's all one. But it is said Raho Shiram means the Rahu's Shiram means it's a way of saying. Because the front part of the meteor, you can say, is the head. You can kind of imagine that. Anyway, I'm just spending some time, but the implications are important. So when you say, my consciousness, my awareness, in Shastra it says, my awareness is like Raho Shiram. It's not as though you are a separate entity where the consciousness is a separate entity. You see? And this is also a thoughtful analysis, because it's not as though it is useless to talk about it. In fact, one of our mistakes in life is to assume that I am endowed with the quality of consciousness. This needs to be understood very well by the advanced students of Vedanta. It's not as though I am some entity. And by the way, this is what the whole world believes in, including science, that you are a separate entity and somehow you are endowed with consciousness. You are endowed with some brains that generate consciousness. This is one of your qualities. Just like you have hands and you have feet and you have eyes and so on, you have consciousness as one of those things. Shastra says, please. No. It is not my consciousness, but I as the conscious. You are the conscious. We will get into that in more detail a little bit later on. It's not like your consciousness, you are the consciousness. And as consciousness, you are Swata Siddha, Swata Swayambhu. You are self-effulgent. Leave aside Swata Siddha, we'll come to that in a minute. That you are self-effulgent. And as a self-effulgent, your identity is with the Jagrat Avastha. So your identity, which is the identity means it is your reflection. So you can have a reflection with the Jagrat Avastha, or you can have a reflection with the Swapna Avastha. Both of them are nothing but the same consciousness. Same consciousness, one seen in one way, one in seen the other way. Both are the same consciousness. And in fact, your identity as a Jagrat person, as what is called Vishwa, is temporarily taken over in the dream state, but with a much lower sense of reality. And then when that is gone, the dream is gone, for whatever reason it's just gone, you go back, you're never really changing your identity. Anyway, the long explanation for the Chit Rupam. So we can summarize the one thing, so this is worth remembering and writing it down. that the dream avastha is useful in analyzing my consciousness, the states of the consciousness, the apparently different states of the consciousness, Jagrat consciousness or dream consciousness. So the dream is the vehicle, and I mentioned to you last week also that it can be seen as Shivalinga. Really, the dream is a Shivalinga, because one that allows you to understand what Shiva is. Shiva means myself, or the Atma is called Shiva. And so to understand that, the dream is a good method to understand. Okay? Now, again, as I may have mentioned last week, but it is worth repeating, the deep sleep state analysis similarly is useful for Swata Siddhatvam, not Swayam Prakashatvam, but Swayam Siddhatvam. Means nothing to do with the knowledge part of myself, but the existence. Who am I? And that I am self-existing. This is the utility of unanalyzing not the dream, but the deep sleep state. And in fact, Swami Tattvavidananda Jivan, he is also reviewing the same. Interestingly enough, in his last visit, he was taking up 10 classes of Dakshinamurti Stotram. And did any of you attend those? Okay, so 2 people. So that was the Dakshinamurti Stotram he took. And we were discussing before he came what you will do. And so he says, I'll take 1 verse of Dakshinamurti Stotram in each class. So, and then of course the book that you've seen, he also wrote that. So he also says, it's very consistent, no matter where you read and so on, this is all very consistent, that the analysis of the deep sleep state is done in order for you to understand self-existence. And we will see how as we proceed today. I think I brought his book. Let me see if I can let me look into that. If not, I pretty much remember all the points that he raised. Excuse me, I'll be right back. No, I must have left it on my table.
I have a copy of it. You want to look at it?
It's okay. No, I had underlined some things and so on. So you see, I did forget another thing. I thought today was perfect, but it didn't turn out to be. So, all the acharyas have said that the 3 states of consciousness have been very carefully designed by Ishvara for our freedom. Very carefully. This is not just a method to rest at night time, which is a secondary benefit. Deep sleep as a restful thing. You're tired, you want to just, and this is what happens, that no matter how active you are during the day, there comes a point which says, I've had it. I just want to just not deal with the world anymore. And then you really just go into a sleep where you become one with Ishvara. You are still one with Ishvara during the daytime, but you refuse. And so you are actively disassociating yourself from the Ishvara unless you become wise. But certainly in the deep sleep state, you are not actively disassociating yourself from the Ishvara. Means that your natural state as nothing but the very nature of Ishvara takes over. So that is a secondary benefit for that. The primary benefit is for students who want to understand themselves and to gain freedom, to analyze the three states appropriately. So from that standpoint, the analysis of the deep sleep state is required and recommended for analyzing your self-existence. So that was the summary of that. Okay. So there we saw, I think, just a quick revision of the verse from last week. So the verse says that you seem to be interrupted through the deep sleep state. It's like as though you are absent. So here we have to make a distinction. Yes, it is true that as a jiva, you are indeed interrupted. You are interrupted in the sense that your sense of who I am is not there during the deep sleep state. So in that sense, you can say that there is a complete absence of you, and you're no longer there during the deep sleep state. But the question is, what is there? What is not there in the deep sleep state? So when you say I'm interrupted, so as a jiva it is interrupted. Because during the day, whatever you're doing, you are a jiva. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, then I did this. These are the things that I want to do, all of those kinds of things. You are there. And in the dream state also, you are there in some form or the other. But in the deep sleep state, you seem to be completely absent. And you are completely absent. Well, I would not say completely absent, you are absent. This is an important thing to see. I was just talking loosely. You are absent. And then the other part of the 6th verse, as I mentioned to you last week, is that the theory proposed by the Buddhists is that you came from shunyatvam. This is one of the two theories of Buddhism, that your origin is from zeroness. And at night time you go back to zeroness. So the Buddhists actually say shunyatvam is an experience. You disappear at night time. And the Buddhists can tell everybody, they see, don't you disappear at night time? People say, yes, I do disappear. So they say this is all fits our theory very well. So one of the aspects of the 6th is to analyze, and we thank the Buddhists for raising some objections that we can answer. So one of the things in the 6th chapter is to raise the objections by the Buddhists, and their objection is that during the night time you disappear. So we have to say, let us analyze it we are absent but not completely absent. Why not? And so there we say that even though we seem to be absent, it is really like an eclipse. So the sun does not really disappear. It seems to be eclipsed. So the night time, the sleep seems to eclipse me. So it seems to eclipse me means then who am I that seems to be eclipsed? Who am I? Because when you say the sun, so there we can say this, the roundness of the sun. The completeness of the sun is that it is a round body. It's a round body. And in fact, it's interesting, Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, please imagine, just see the basis of creation of the entire universe is in roundness. Everything is made out of roundness. It's not as though the sun will be a square, imagine. The sun like a square body. It is, everything is, and in fact, even our life is a roundness. It's a circular process. You're born, you live, you die, and you start a new circle. Everything is circular. Your molecular structure is circular. Atoms are circular. Everything is circular. Anyway, that's a separate thing. So the sun has a complete circle. And the complete circle seems to be bitten off by the eclipse. It's no longer a complete circle. And to our eye also we'll say, hey, what's happening here? So similarly, the Atma, like the sun, is not disappearing. It remains the same as before. But something is bitten off. And what is bitten off is the Jivatvam. My identity as a Jiva is bitten off, not my Atma. Not my Atma. And so many different reasons were given here. An important one given here is the word pratyabhigyayate. Pratyabhigyayate. So here, one of the students, Ramanand Patel, had sent me an email saying that that in the last class we had said that because I recollect that I slept well, that means, that is called pratyabhigya. So that means that you were there. So he says, I don't quite understand it and I don't accept it. So he said that the reason why you say that I slept well is not your memory of the night, but the state of your mind. When you wake up in the morning, your mind is kind of quiet, and most of the time, unless you've had a bad dream just prior to waking up, that you're quiet and so on. So based on the inference drawn from the state of your mind, you conclude that I must have slept well. This is his contention. Yeah, good question. So we said no, that's not right, because in fact this is commented on a little bit more in more detail later on, but I'll give you a quick summary of it now. That is on the 19th verse of the Manasa Ullasa, this point is taken up. So the pratyabhigya, a Sanskrit word, equals a combination of memory and anubhava, smriti and anubhava. So there is no inference here. No inference here. So what is considered to be inference is actually nanubhava, means your experience. See, inference could be where you say that the person said that she will come to the class tonight. Let's just take an example. So somebody said that I'll come to the class tonight, I'm definitely going to come. And she doesn't come. And she's a very sincere person and so on and so forth. And she, in other words, sincere in the sense that if she says she will come, she will come. But she didn't come. So what can you do? You have to infer that something must have happened. Isn't it? Something must have happened because that person is not casual. Not like somebody was talking to her long and he says, okay, today I'm not going to. It's not like that. It's a sincere student. But she did not come. So you can conclude based on inference. You don't know. You don't know, but from an inference you said something must have happened. Either she got a phone call or she had a physical issue or a car didn't start. Anything, whatever can happen. So this is called inference. That is not the case when you wake up. It's not as though, I think that I might have slept well. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think my mind is better than yesterday. It's not like that. You have a personal experience that you had a non-interrupted state. So it's anubhava. And then, of course, the smriti. Smriti means that, in fact, if this means that supposing you ask someone, did you sleep well last night? And he says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why? Because I have no smriti, no memory, I have no experience. That's not the case. So what it means is that there is continuity. This is the thing that we have to think about. So Svatasiddhatva means there is self-existence in a continuous manner. Even though there is semblance of interruption. So this is the meaning of the eclipse. The sun is always complete. And sometimes it gets cut off, sometimes it doesn't. That's it. Doesn't mean that it really gets cut off. So it is completely interrupted, it is just interrupted as an eclipse. So this is an important thing for us to see. So now what happens is that in the deep sleep, now we can begin to analyze some of the deep sleep aspects of it. One of them is that I give up an abhimana, an identity with my body. I give up the identity with my body. And by giving up the identity in the body, you are still there. This is the thing to remember, is that see, right now, I am so tied to my body that myness, I-ness and my bodiness are one and the same. So you can even make an equation. I remember seeing this from Swami Paramarthananda a long time ago. So you can say that if A is there and B is there, you can never, whenever A is there, the B is there. Two factors, A and B. That means that you cannot distinguish between A and B because both of them are always there, isn't it? You can say there are two parts to it, but they're just like they're Siamese twins. They're always there. But what happens is if A is there and B is not there, then you can conclude that A and B both may be there, but they don't have to be there all the time. Similarly is the situation. I am there at night time, but my body is not there. So that clearly means I am not always the body. In fact, I am not the body. And so in some senses, the body is kind of like a confusing thing. It's called Brahma. So one interesting thing about Brahma, the definition of Brahma is, so there are two words that we have, as you know. We can even add that here. So there are two words. One is called Brahma, and one is called Prama. So, Brahma means seeing something which is not there. And Prama means accurately seeing something. And so the Brahma here means that I am the body. This is how nobody goes around and says that I am the body. No one goes around. You ask somebody, who are you? He says, I am the body. No one says that. That will be stupidity. But you behave exactly like you are the body. What can we say? You don't say it. You don't admit it. You don't admit the stupidity outright. But you behave stupidly. Stupidly in the sense it is called Brahma. It's called Brahma. And so, and the interesting thing is that even after it is made clear to me that I am not the body, I continue to believe I am the body. And in fact, this is an interesting thing. So Maheshananji has said that there is great value in continuously remembering Shravanam and Mananam until it becomes your top priority in life. You are not really reaching your goal. Absolutely always seeing Shravanam and Mananam. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, Swami Maheshananji says that your idea that I am the body, which is a Brahma, this is a Brahma, can be divided into before you have the knowledge and after you have the knowledge. So before you have the knowledge, it becomes primarily Shravanam, because you don't quite understand what you mean. What do you mean I'm not the body? How is that possible? Well, then arguments are given. You see, and this is one of the arguments that we are seeing just now, that if you were the body, then even in deep sleep you will be saying, I am the body. No. See, if it is the truth, it will stay there all the time. But it is not the truth. It comes and bothers you for a while, then goes away. That's not you. And so this is one of the reasons for doing Shravanam and Mananam before the knowledge. So you have to do a lot of listening for a long time. Swami Paramarthananda says that Shravanam doesn't mean just once. It means years of listening again and again. And Swami Maheshananji made exactly the same point. So there is value in doing Shravanam before the knowledge. And there is value in doing after the knowledge. Because there are two things that are vying for your attention. One is Shastra, and the other one is your normal experience. And they are both opposite to each other. This doesn't happen if you are able to see that the Brahma means that this is just a snake. It's just a rope. And once the rope is understood, the snake disappears, never to come back. That's not the case in our Vedanta. Even though in some meditation and so on, you become very clear that I am just a conscious entity. And I have nothing to do with my abhimana, my identity with the body. But the moment you open your eyes and you move around, you go to the bathroom, because you have to go to the bathroom, or you're hungry, thirsty, then the body identification always still comes up, repeats itself. So there is Shravanam and Mananam required even after knowledge. And in fact, they say that really it's not until the moment you wake up, you think about what your Brahman, and by the time you go to sleep, and all throughout your day, whenever you can, then you will see that Swami Dhananji had given this example, very beautiful example. It's kind of like a scale. Like a scale. And so the scale is the old traditional scale that has, the one side there is some goods and the other side there's some weight. And so what happens is that the weight of the samsara is very heavy. And the goods, supposing you're putting down some potatoes, which is like knowledge. And the potatoes are very light. So the scale is kind of tilted like this. But there comes a point where you keep on putting more potatoes, more potatoes, more potatoes. This is still there. The samsara is still there. But the weight of the potatoes starts to overwhelm. And then touches the ground, and this one is now light. It is still there, but it really doesn't bother you. So this is called, then Brahma turns into Brahma. Very clear knowledge, Jivan Mukti. So this is the process that is said. Anyway, going back to the analysis of the sleep. So in the sleep, you have no Deha Abhimana. And not only that, you have no Abhimana. This is the important thing to see. As a doer, as a karta, and as a bhokta, as a enjoyer or sufferer, karta and bhokta. So the kartritvam, the doership, and the lack of doership is also mithya. That I am a doer. I do things. I have to do things in order to support myself. This ultimately is also false. And one of the reasons it is false is that if you are a permanent doer, you will be a doer even in deep sleep. Same argument as the Deha. So you can repeat it for almost everything. Doesn't happen. And Swami Dayanand used to say that really speaking, I remember this argument very early on when I met Swami Dayanand, very early on. And it's funny how some of the teachers will say something which really makes a big impression. It's a very simple thing, but it just makes a big impression on you that really changes your attitude and so on and so forth. This was one of them, what I'm going to just tell you. And this happened, I think, in my first meeting with Swamiji, in the first four or 5 days. What he said was that each one of us has an unfinished list of things to do that I need to do in order to be happy. All of us. And I looked at him and he said, yes, that's true. When I met him, I was 35 years of age. And very busy with my job, family, not very completely happy, but busy with my life and so on. And sure, and Swamiji also has said that whether you actually write things down or not, you have a list of things that you have, so you're asking, when will you be happy? Well, I'll be happy when this happens, my job is okay, and my kids are okay, and my health is okay. Long list of things to say. You're not going to be happy until then? No. There's no chance of that happening, and I don't see how this is our situation. This is what Swamiji said. So we are walking around with a mental list in our hand. Whether you write it down on a piece of paper is immaterial, but we have it. Swamiji said, please listen to this. When you are in deep sleep, I remember this so well, when he said that. He says, when you are in deep sleep, have you fulfilled that list? Has any of that been fulfilled? Has even one of them been fulfilled? No. And are you not happier in the deep sleep without having fulfilled than you are when you are awake and the list comes back to you? That had a big impression. Because what it did for me, that should do for really all of you as well, is to raise the possibility that I don't have to accomplish all my desires before I'm happy. This is a very big thing. Because, so this is what a samsari is. A samsari is one who has convinced himself or herself that I'm not going to be happy until I can do all these things. And every time there is a problem in your life, you say, see, my list got interrupted. And everyone says that I really am trying. You ask anyone, really, especially people at my age, maybe even earlier than that, they'll say, you know what, I'm trying to simplify my life. I'm trying, and in the process of doing that, they are making it more complicated. So what about this place that you have to, my friend said that you have to go to Egypt and Turkey. That's a very important thing. But after that, then I will be okay. This is never going to happen. There's no simplification process. And so the basic thing is that I am just busy trying to fulfill my desires, and I cannot really fulfill them, and this is samsara. And Swamiji said, absolutely nonsense. And he had two, he supplemented this example in other way. One was a deep sleep, and that's what really impressed me very much, really. And the other one is, he is very fond of telling simple jokes that make people laugh. And so there he said, and that also was very impressive, that for a moment when a joke is given, when you really resonate with you and you start laughing, have you fulfilled all your desires? It's still there. So what it means is you can be happy. So if you read Swami Tattvaninda's book, or towards the end of the analysis of this, he makes this point also. That's what kind of reminded me when I was just going through his book, just as a additional point to that. One of the things that the deep sleep does, which is the main thing, that I can be not only without my body, but without my mind, without my buddhi, without my doership, kartritvam, without my bhoktritvam, without my sukha dukkha samsara. And in some, made a note here, even as a bhakta of Ishvara, as a reader of Vedas, as a student of Vedanta, you are none of those. No matter what you do, you are none of those. And yet you are completely happy. And so that is really, that should tell us something. Should tell us something. That if I can be happy without doing these things, if my ananda is, so there you can say not only is a swata siddhatva, so the main example of the sleep, as I mentioned in the very beginning of the class, is that I am self-existing. Why is it self-existing? Because all the factors that I think I am dependent on are not there, but I am still there. What more proof of independence do I want? See the thing? This is a good analysis to see. Right now, my basic thinking is that I am a dependent being. I need my body, I need my mind, I need friends, I need health, I need breathing, I need all these kinds of things. This is who I am. But this is not true. And I have no other way to prove that except in deep sleep. That's why we distinguish between deep sleep and dream. You see, that's another thing to see. Because you can say that in one form or the other, I'm there in the dream also. There also I don't have a lot of things. My body is not there. So this is something interesting. So if you look at the, if you draw a table of three things, okay, well, let's draw it since we are free to do it. So you can just say, so this is the waking state. So here you have the consciousness and the body and the mind. In fact, let's change it to mind and the body. All three of them are there, A, B, and C. Then we come to the dream state. Here the consciousness is there, mind is there, but there is no body. And then you have the sleep state, where consciousness is there, mind is also not there, the body is also not there. If you want, you can put it. So what this means is that during the Jagrat Avastha, all three of them are present. And so you cannot distinguish yourself from, whenever you are awake, your consciousness is there. You can say, me, the Chit Swarupam. And then you have awareness of yourself and awareness of the world, which has come from the mind. And you have a specific gross body. And in the dream state, one of them is removed, but the other one is still there. You still have some identity, some consciousness, and so on. In the deep sleep, even that is taken away. So if you are really looking for a accurate assessment of who you are, you should see where you never disappear. Because if some things disappear, then it becomes incidental, not intrinsic. So that very just means that if your presence is there, these two are incidental. And this becomes intrinsic. And so this intrinsicness means I, the conscious, Sanmatra, I am. I am not anything in particular, but I don't disappear. I don't disappear. So this is the thing, that all projections disappear, but I don't disappear. I don't become shunya, as some of the Buddhists say, that you become shunya. That's not happening. So this is one of the things. But then also, the fact that the deep sleep state, which is the consciousness, is there. So it says Swatasiddha, self-existing. And it is awareful. And awareful here means it's my experience. I'm not awareful of anything particular. So for example, in a lighted world, you are aware of something or the other. If there is light, then you're saying, I am aware of this table, I'm aware of the carpet, I'm aware of the people, I'm aware. But God forbid PG&E turns the whole light off. Right now. Okay. And there's complete darkness. Complete darkness. Swami Tattvavidananda Ji was in his example says, you are in a cave. In a cave, you don't even have starlight even. There's no light whatsoever. Complete darkness. So that means even when you open the eyes, you don't see anything except darkness. You don't see anything. It's just undifferentiated darkness. But do you disappear? No. You are aware of nothing, but you are aware. You see the distinction? This is exactly like happens in deep sleep. And the other thing is that in the deep sleep state, as Swami Dayanandaji pointed out earlier, which I described, not only am I always there, I'm awareful. So I'm Chit Swarupaha. I am unlimitedly happy. I am Ananda Swarupa. And in fact, the word which is used by the Shastra very often is Ananta. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. This is very significant. Because during the day, even if you are happy, you are not unlimitedly happy. Your mind always encloses you, even if you're enjoying ice cream. Whatever, something that gives you a lot of fun, pleasure, whatever. It does not really immediately, you have to give out some money and you say, oh my God, it was so expensive. So it becomes limited. And then at the very most you can enjoy ice cream, and the ice cream is slowly going. You only have about 2 more spoons to go, limited. And once it is gone, then it is completely limited and becomes fat in your body, more limited. So no Jagrat Avastha can give you. Here, while you're asleep, and the reason is, why do I even wake up? Because the next best thing to do is to be aware that I am Ananda. That I do not have until after the sleep is over. So this is the pratyabhijna that comes later on. But the base of it is that I am completely happy and I am unlimited, and my desires may still be there, but they don't bother me. They don't touch me. So in fact, I would say that there are probably 2 things, and some Tattvavidananda also had said the same thing, that in Sushupti, what is happening to me? In deep sleep, 2 things happen. One is, I am asangaha. Means I am untouched. Untouched by anything that is a possible source of problems. Like this one. The mind is a source of a problem. The body is a source of a problem. I'm untouched by that. I can be blessed by myself. So this is one of the things. The second thing is, so yeah, it's interesting. You look at the second thing and understand this is the last thing. I'm almost done with this. When you say that I'm a Sangaha, a doubt can come in that even though I am bereft of the body and mind, but don't the body and the mind also give me sukha? Body means that I'm also, between the body and the mind, I'm also including the sense organs that touch the sense. Like eating an ice cream is a process where my sense organs are in touch with some desirable sense objects, and that gives me pleasure. So one doubt that can come in from asangoham, ayam purusha, very famous vakya in Shastra, asangoham ayam purusha. This purusha is asanga, untouched. So one doubt that can come in, that means that I cannot be touched with fun and pleasure. And so the second thing which we've also talked about is that I am, ultimately this will come later on, I'll see this, it's called bhuma. So bhuma means I am not only self-effulgent, not only I am self-existent, I am self-ananda. My ananda is not coming from outside. Why not? Because in the deep sleep state, I am just myself without any touching, and yet I am nothing but ananda. Ananda Swarupa. And I will say Ananta. Ananda and Ananta both, Swarupa. So this is the essence of the 6th verse. Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrisho maya samachhadanat sanmatra eva aham. Sanmatra eva sanmatra pakaranopasamharanata. So karan means that there is sanmatra, and then all sense organs, all body, all mind, etc. is gone. Prabodha samaya yav pratyabhigyayate. Pratyabhigyayate means that my own personal experience along with memory and so on and so forth, is not just a simple inference. It is in fact my own personal experience, and one that can recollect, and for that person who has made this whole creation. And all that means is that I go back into Brahma again, because the Brahma has not been addressed. I'm still seeing something which is not there. It's a very, and so until the Brahma is removed, I will go back to the same samsari, being in the same samsari. And so this is what happens. And to that creator, that Dakshinamurti, my namaskara. So that is the essence of the 6th verse. And I think I'm going to take one more class. There's some very good points to bring up in the Manasa Ullasa, which I was doing it today. So I will revise some of this and also take up the Manasa Ullasa verses, and I think that will be done with the 6th verse from next week on. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Questions? Yeah, Kalpana?
Does the word pramata come from prama?
Yes. So pramata means the knower. Knower. Pramakarta. Yes.
And Ramaranji's doubt that he had on that you reflect on what happened in your
Correct.
mind. One of the things I was thinking of, if you're thinking about that, the mind is never the same. So you would never say you had the same experience every deep sleep. If you know,
Yeah.
if you're interpreting that as what state of mind is, the state of mind is never the same. Every night you will not have the same experience when you wake up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Just for Ramananji, I don't know if he could hear this or not. He said he was going to listen to it. So here, one of the students has said that another reason for not seeing purely that it is an inference is that you do not evaluate deep sleep purely from looking at the mind, because the mind is very different every time you wake up. So that is a good point. And yet our personal experience is that regardless of the changes in how our mind is, which is a function of the disturbances of the dream, really, the mind is a function of the disturbances of the dream. My personal experience is that I generally slept well. I slept well, and it's very welcome to you. And so supposing, that's a good point, Chandra, that supposing you wake up one day with a disturbed mind, which happens sometimes. You wake up in the morning with a disturbed mind. And if that is your conclusion, that my mind is disturbed and I don't like it, you won't even go to sleep. See? You won't go to, because you'll be afraid that you might wake up. But despite any disturbances of the mind, you still love to sleep. Deeply believing that fundamentally I'll be okay. Once in a while I may have some bad thoughts when I wake up, but fundamentally. So that's a good point, Chandra. I think it's a good thing you said. So this is how systematically the Adi Shankara has composed these verses, and also they have to be interpreted in a very nice way. And so this is the 6th verse is Atma Satsvarupa Sanmatraha Eva. This is what finally proves that I am Svatasiddha. So these have to be slowly thought over, because as I mentioned very early on, just by mentioning this, my mind is still not quite convinced that I am Svat, because the implications of understanding I'm Swata Siddha are just enormous. And I'm not quite there yet, but the door is open, and we have to explore it. The door is open. I have to walk in confidently. So this is the method of doing it. That please see that all the methods that we said, A, B, and C, mind, body, all those kinds of things. So that's how it goes. Yeah,
So we discuss about disturbed mind,
correct.
but that is with context to swapna.
Yes,
Assuming there is no swapna,
yes.
there should not be any disturbing mind.
Yeah, there should not be,
So-
but there is always swapna. Swapna is always there.
Well, I don't have it.
No,
But
you-
what I'm trying to say is,
You don't remember.
if you don't have a dream, the example of deep sleep
Uh-huh.
is properly explained, excluding the dream state within.
No, this is true. This is what you say is true.
Yeah.
So Arvindji is saying that another point about the fact that it's not just a memory, that if you don't have any dreams and then your mind is not disturbed, then the other points about the fact that I'm recalling a very pleasant deep sleep are still valid and becomes more valid. So if that is the case, yes. But there's no way, even if you don't remember the dreams, it's not possible. All you have to do is to get this Fitbit watch. Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah,
I was
it
thinking
does.
like only 40 minutes.
just this, that it'll shatter your confidence.
Yeah.
It'll tell you
It'll tell you that.
how many dreams you had, when you had, all of that. I really recommend this Fitbit watch, honestly. I'm telling you, I'm serious about it. That to invest in this kind of a watch that simply, and this Fitbit thing is just phenomenal because they don't cost as much as Apple, and they have two features which are very useful. One is it counts your steps, and the other one is it evaluates your sleep pattern at night time.
Apple used to do that, now they just.
You don't need to go to a hospital for a sleep study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that thing.
Correct. Very useful. I mean, the dream thing, I was interested for a while, but then you are what you are. But the steps is just phenomenal. Today I've only had 5,200. When I go home, I'm going to have to walk a lot.
The steps are not accurate, you know that.
No, they're pretty.
When I'm rolling my roti, it's counting the steps.
No, but it's
Still burning calories.
it's still you're burning calories. Yes, absolutely.
She's moving it.
That's true. My granddaughter used to say that. She says her friends, they all do something like this, and they make it more. But in general, it's close enough.
You're moving.
Yeah, you move. You can see it.
I mean, we have a best Fitbit within. To me.
No, but that's not true because you're saying you don't dream. That's not, it's not an accurate built-in. There's no way that can happen. No way.
Well, when we were a child,